Well, hello there, everybody. You know what? I've decided I'm going to celebrate the creation of this channel. And I'm going to do it by finishing up some old business. I'm going to get one little thing ready here. All right, then. Activate screen share. This is a video that Phony Beetle Maniacs challenged me to respond to quite a long time ago. And while I'm going to try to make Puppy Turtle reacts mostly about articles from now on, because it's just easier and better to do with this setup, I'm going to respond to this one. And I'm going to respond to future videos Beetle throws at me. So without further ado... Okay, hold on, I need to... I'm not... You can... Yeah, I can't look at them... Okay, so yeah, there it is working. Let's begin. Infowars.com, where there is neither actual info nor actual wars.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
It was almost as if we were planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Either you were with us, or you were with the terrorists.
I also believe a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals. Guns will be taken. No one will have to be home. We have to take all the evidence.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city. Global governance at last. Is it one world? The central bankers in charge. But aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do?
For me, give me liberty or give me death!
The answer to 1984 is 1776.
That was fucking retarded, and George Orwell will hate you. Would hate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. And I want to thank you for joining us this Patriots Day, 15th day of April 2013. Obviously, when you have a global corporate occupational government run by foreign banks that has been caught staging terror attacks all over the world, and that's declassified. And when you read about Operation Gladio, we're going to cover, where in Europe, if a left-wing or right-wing group started getting control of a country through the electoral process, who was not popular with the Bilderberg group, they would just stage terror attacks and blame it on them. So because we understand this history, we would be fools. We would be completely insane
to accept that any terror attack ever at any time throughout the history of the world is authentic. Is that what you're getting at? Like, because you think that just because a terrorist attack somewhere has been faked, therefore there cannot be a real terrorist attack.
Not to investigate this as a false flag terror attack. So I want to cover some of the facts of what's currently happening.
No, you don't investigate it as anything. You investigate it as a terrorist attack, and you try to figure out who did it. For it to be a false flag attack, it has to be someone other than who was, who seemed to do it, than who was professed to do it.
With the Patriots Day massacre, as they're now calling it, with the bombing of the Boston Marathon right there with the photo finish right at the end of the course. But you need to understand this. I have been warning you desperately because it's all public in globalist white papers and different public publications.
Which you are, just yammering on about nonsense instead of citing.
That the establishment has been saying that there will be...
Alex, you always say that you have the secret documents, but you don't seem to show them on air too often. In fact, ever that I've seen. You just sort of say that they're there.
Domestic terror attacks here in the United States, and that domestic groups are going to be carrying those out. And they put out the asinine headlines that the Army plans to put down a Tea Party rebellion, and that the Tea Party is going to work with Al-Qaeda. Let me tell you.
Who the fuck said that? I mean, the Tea Party and Al-Qaeda are opposed factions, very squarely. The Tea Party are essentially Christian extremists. At least for the most part, Al-Qaeda are Muslim extremists. They're incompatible, and they cannot work together. And of course, the Tea Party is a lot less extreme than Al-Qaeda is. They're really more fundamentalist than actual extremists. But I don't know who said they were going to work together. Someone somewhere probably, but no one mainstream. Maybe you could cite. Maybe when you say that your opponents say things, you could cite them, like where they're saying it. Like for my citation for where he said that he has the secret documents, this video is an example where he just said that he had the secret documents. Not those words exactly, but similar words.
Who works for Al-Qaeda. It's the Central Intelligence Agency and the offshore banks. They run Al-Qaeda. They created Al-Qaeda. They use Al-Qaeda to menace...
How do you know?
The West into submission.
And it's working really well, isn't it? Like, we're all sitting here, and like how many bad things have happened? Like, I mean, there was the Patriot Act and the Iraq War, both of which were bad, but haven't exactly crippled the prospect of American freedom as a whole.
And when you look at the level and the magnitude of the dramas and the sitcoms and all of the other productions that are out there where the right-wingers are going to stage the terror attack, the right-wingers are going to carry out all these different events.
Well, both right-wingers and left-wingers perform domestic terrorism. On the right-wing side, you have some pro-lifers who bomb abortion clinics. It's the first one I can think of off the top of my head. On the left-wing side, you have any eco-terrorist. Or, guys like the Animal Liberation Front I would consider left-wing terrorists. Or I know less about the Animal Rights Militia, but from what I hear, they're equally the same thing.
For someone who is conscious and awake, it is as plain as the nose on your face that as a society, and guys, I'm getting a feed into my ear. a humming feed, so they got a channel open on the other side into my ear. That's why I take the piece out. A little hint on that. Thank you. I, I also hope that you understand that when you watch so-called mainstream globalist media, that they have reporters for a couple minutes reading off teleprompters who've rehearsed it for hours, who come on to look compelling and real. Reading.
So, it's show business, dude. That's how it's got to work. I mean, when people are actually unscripted, they sound like me.
What someone else told them to say. When you see me up here, or my...
Yes, what someone else told them to say. Because most reporters haven't actually done much research into the topic. You can't do adequate research into, 10 stories for a 30-minute 5 o'clock news broadcast every night. Of course, you should be reading off what someone else who actually researched the story told you to say. Otherwise, you're just going to get things horrendously wrong. Because you can't research that much and do a news show every single night.
Crew, this is teleprompter free, real brain, real analysis. This is real.
The people who type the words that will go into the teleprompter have real brains and are applying real analysis as opposed to fake analysis, which I don't know what that would be.
And I hope that all the viewers out there understand how special Infowars.com is, because we're fighting to even keep it up and running.
Oh, you're special, all right. You are special.
I hope you realize that there is no other alternative media doing real live news, real analysis from a real historical perspective. It's all left-wing controlled. Or
what about Coast to Coast AM? I mean, you probably agree with them on almost everything.
Right-wing control. There is no real media out there, and I've got a skeleton crew out there that is probably into hour number 14 today, doing the regular radio show, the TV show, all of it. And I'm not up here complaining about that. I want you to realize that we are the resistance. And yes, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, everything we're doing is having more and more of an effect.
Bullshit. Bullshit. If you were a meaningful threat to the New World Order, they would kill you. Like, the normal excuse for why Alex Jones isn't already dead is that it would look too suspicious if he were to die. But here's the thing. I think that if he posed a meaningful threat to the New World Order, a meaningful existential threat to their plans, it would probably be worth killing him rather than letting him continue preaching the truth.
On so many fronts. And so the good news is when the White House comes out and demonizes the Drudge Report, or comes out and has their surrogates attack Infowars.com and myself, their surrogates like Media Matters and others openly run by the White House, it shows that we're in the fight. They wouldn't be attacked.
Media Matters is run by the White House. That's why, at least from what I hear, it's consistently left-wing even when the administration is Republican.
Us if we weren't on to what was really happening. Now, let me just get this out in the open for everybody. The New York Post is reporting 12 dead, nearly 50 injured after 2 explosions rock Boston Marathon. Suspect identified and being guarded at hospital. And they're saying Saudi Arabia. But separately, we have clips we're going to play in a moment of CNN. I mean, it's ad nauseum, and Fox and MSNBC saying, could it be right-wingers? It's Patriot Day. They had other Patriot events in the area. Could this be, carried out by them?
And so your evidence that the news networks are in on this conspiracy with the people who did this false flag attack is that the news media made an incorrect prediction / statement about this false flag attack and made asses of themselves. That's what you're going with. But let me just state let me just right now, after a drink of apple juice, let me just state a principle that's going to be operative and important throughout this entire video. See, a funny thing about cable news networks, as Steve Shives pointed out, is that as it happens, which is what, the news networks, the cable news networks, they are, they're, run by corporations, and they, as a result, have to compete. And one thing that competes particularly well is the slogan that we're bringing you big news as it happens. The problem is that as it happens is a really shitty time to bring news because there's all this chaos going around it. What has actually happened isn't necessarily clear until a while after it happens. So yes, of course, the news media are going to make wildly incorrect statements about, about emerging news stories because they're not. Now, if they're good cable news media who are still doing that because they have to compete, they'll make the statements in a tentative, this is what rumor says type manner. But sometimes they won't. Sometimes they can't be trusted to do so. Or sometimes, they say this is what rumor says in a sort of wink-winky way. Or sometimes people just forget that by rumor has it, it is meant that rumor has it, not it is true that.
And I went on the radio today 2 hours, well, really 3 hours before this happened, at 11 a.m. Central, 12 noon Eastern. And I said, all the hype and media buildup I see clearly is pointing towards the establishment firing the first shot but blaming it on us. Because whoever fires the shot heard around the world first has a good chance of losing because they're in the wrong. So I said the establishment...
No, that is not how that works. Yes, firing the first shot can give you a disadvantage if you don't have a lot of public support, because it can hurt your PR, but you can very easily win having not fired the first shot. Because who is actually in the right or in the wrong has nothing to do with who wins the war. It's who has the most power. And the thing is that with the New World Order, as described, they are essentially omnipotent. They can kill, maim, savage, beat, harm whoever they want, however they want, and can essentially do whatever, so long as it is remotely possible according to the laws of the universe. And, perhaps they're limited by technology, but they can still do whatever. And so no, the New World Order is not threatened meaningfully by you if the New World Order has the properties that you describe.
Establishment will fire the first shot but blame it on us, just like Lexington and Concord, which actually happened again in and around Boston 200-something years ago today. Started today through the 19th. There were events and skirmishes. So you have to understand, if the globalists can demonize liberals, conservatives, libertarians, whatever the case is, whoever's opposing them, by setting off a bombing, a mass shooting, and then collectively blaming a group, they will do it. So you have to understand, it's not gun owners' fault Sandy Hook happened. They collectively try to tell us that's our...
No, it's not gun owners' fault Sandy Hook happened. The issue is that it's the fault of exactly one person who actually I don't think was a gun owner that Sandy Hook happened, but it is not worth the risk to let people have guns, or at least to let people have guns that are really good at mass shooting people and not good at much else that a civilian would plausibly be doing with them. That's not worth the risk. There's no benefit to letting people have those large magazines and those very powerful weapons, as opposed to smaller weapons, which will do just as well for anything a civilian should be using them for, when, that allows really deadly mass shootings like Sandy Hook. That's the point that's being made. Now, for me personally, I tend to be much more anti-gun than most people on the left. I would even have some sympathy for the idea that we out and out should be Japan and just not have guns at all. But that's not mainstream among the left. That's a place where I'm actually left of the mainstream.
Our fault. That's a fraud on its face.
And I don't necessarily think we should definitely not have guns. I just think that that's a reasonable position, and it's one I tend towards.
The proliferation of gun ownership in the last 20 years, we've shown the FBI numbers ad nauseum, 49% drop in violent crime. But they can take individual...
Correlation does not equal causation, Alex. The reason that violent crime constantly goes down is because as technology gets better, as people get more enlightened, and especially as technology gets better, people have an easier and easier time feeding themselves, being more prosperous, being less in poverty. And when poverty goes down, violent crime goes down with it, because most crime is committed, well, not most crime, but a lot of crime tends to be committed disproportionately by poor people. And so as people get less and less poor, they commit less and less violent crime because they're less and less desperate. That's why violent crime has gone down. It's not because there are more guns. It's because people are living better lives.
Events and hype them up where you feel like it's just happened to you, using your basic human empathy, because they know you're a good person, and they sit there like psychopathic, sociopathic technocrats punching those...
Technocrats? Do you know what that word means?
Buttons that make you a human, that make you a good person. And so first, before I get into all this news, I want to play a clip off a YouTube video we shot about 4 hours ago where CNN was already, within a few hours of this event happening, saying...
In other words, the worst possible time to make statements. Yeah, if CNN was saying prematurely that they thought that this was a right-wing domestic terrorist and they were saying it with no basis, they were in the wrong. They shouldn't have. Now, if police were actually speculating that, and they were just reporting it as police are speculating yada yada, then that might be okay. But generally, as I just said, as it happens is a very bad time to report the news, because it's when you don't know very much about it.
And could it be right-wing extremist?
Hold on, I'm going to grab something. I'm going to be back as soon as possible. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
And even though the narrative has now come out that it could be a Saudi Arabian Al-Qaeda group, they're still on MSNBC.
I think it did turn out to be Muslim. At least the person was Muslim. I don't think they were affiliated with Al-Qaeda.
You see, as we speak.
I don't remember for sure.
Before I went live, saying it's probably right-wingers. Now, I said first, the minute it happened with Richard Belzer, the actor and writer, on, I said, watch, they'll try to blame it on libertarians, conservatives, and he agreed. Now, I had everybody from Glenn Beck.
So the media tried to blame it on libertarians and conservatives. They turned out to be wrong, and they admitted that they're wrong, and that's your evidence of a conspiracy to blame the libertarians and conservatives. The fact that they held that position for like 5 minutes until it became untenable.
Back to Salon, to Media Matters, to Media Light, to BBC, come out and attack us tonight and say, how dare Alex Jones say the government could be involved?
The reason that people were reacting that way, Alex Jones, is because the perception was that you said it was a false flag attack so quickly that you couldn't possibly have had a good reason to think so, at least not with any confidence by that point. And so they were laughing at the fact that as soon as something happened, you instantly blame it on the New World Order.
Now Glenn Beck went further. He said, I said the government did it. when what I said was they have done it over and over again. It's been declassified. And so we have to look at them as the prime suspects. And my point is, they do not want us as a culture to even fit.
This man is a pig. Well, definitely not literally. Alex Jones is, in the literal sense, smarter, in the metaphorical / joking sense, dumber than that. As for him being crazy, there's no compelling evidence of that. As far as I know, he's not been diagnosed by anyone. I doubt he would submit himself, to a therapist for diagnosis. So there's really no reliable way to know if he's crazy, because you can't diagnose someone over the internet reliably. As for not publicizing their views, where it says there, well, I find these people hilarious, so I'm publicizing away.
That, hey, who really stands to gain? Who gets to sell a police state? Who gets to take liberties? Who gets billions every month in no-bid weapons contracts? Who's been caught?
The government the government has a lot of money because it has to do a lot of shit that's really expensive. Like, gigantic military death machines of the sort that the right wing, which you belong to, wants us to keep paying for. I don't know if you specifically want it, but the right wing, which you support and endorse, wants it. Those things cost fuckloads of money. Because, like, really big building projects tend to. Or, funding every police department. How many police departments are there in this country? Millions. Or at least hundreds of thousands. You have to fund every single one of them. Not all from the federal government, but the government gets a lot of money because it has a lot of shit to do.
Doing this before. So let's go to that first clip from my little YouTube report I did, where a few hours after I said they'll probably blame it on us, CNN was already trying to do it. So am I a good guy for being right? No. According to Beck, I'm a bad guy. Let's go to that clip.
Just because you accurately predicted that CNN would say that it was a domestic right-wing terrorist, not completely baselessly, I might add. I mean, it did happen on Patriots Day. That's not sufficient to prove that it was a right-wing terrorist, and so we'll watch the clip here. I've not seen it yet, because this is the first time I'm watching this. But, I'm interested to see exactly how sternly did they make this statement.
And Peter, what are you waiting to hear for? To hear about in these coming hours? I think the constituency inside the bomb is going to make a big difference about how we identify the person who did this or the persons who did this. Because if it's hydrogen peroxide, that points to Al Qaeda. If it's something else, could be a right-wing extremist group or something.
Could be. Like, Alex, are you listening to the same? Here, I'll make sure it's done.
I now turn it over to Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room for the latest on it.
All right, folks. I went on the...
They said that they didn't know who did it, and that what weapons, what kinds of explosions turned out to be used would give an indication as to who did it. And they specifically mentioned could be a right-wing extremist group. That's not that bad. Like, they're essentially saying they don't know. Now, if I were them, if I were news reporting, I would have... I mean, here's the thing you have to keep... I mean, if it were an eco-terrorist, they would, have a tendency to attack, something related to the environment. Something topical. If it were, ARM or ALF, which, ALF, at least according to them, they don't they specifically never target human lives. They just destroy property, and they are still terrorists in a way. Well, there is no one definition of terrorism that everyone uses, but they are still essentially terrorists. I don't know if armed target civilians or not. I know they're supposed to be more extreme than ALF, but neither of them would perform the Boston bombing. The point is that, okay, they didn't know. That's all the clip said. That we don't know that it might be a right-wing extremist, depending on what kinds of explosions turned out to have been used. That's not the same as, hey there, news reporter guys. It turns out that it was a right-wing extremist. Like, that's an extremely innocuous and tiny statement to use as evidence for your conspiracy.
The radio today, hours before this happened, it's on record, the 15th of April, and I said I can see all the scripting with the TV shows, the movies, where it's the right. And again, I'm just marveling here tonight, watching my crew or other families at home, and I'm not kissing their butt because they're even asking for it. I just want to say I appreciate the crew, and I appreciate you, the listeners and viewers out there, because
appreciation appreciated, Alex Jones. Appreciation appreciated.
You know, my dad was here picking up my son tonight because he was here with me all day to take him home.
You have children?
My wife. And I just looked at my...
There's a woman who consented to sex with you?
Dad and my son walking away, the generation before me, the generation after me, thinking about how they're just little souls like myself who just want a future. And, you know, it's a fact. It's...
No, kids... Well, some kids just want a future, possibly including your kids, but most kids are like, you know, don't think that much. They don't think, I want a future. They think, I want candy and to watch SpongeBob and to play video games and to get my homework done as quickly as possible without getting in trouble or getting bad grades so that I can quickly go off and play. You know, and that depends on age a great deal. You know, obviously the thoughts of a 6-year-old and the thoughts of a 16-year-old are extremely different. But children generally are not very forward-thinking. I personally, I didn't start thinking like really seriously about my future until I was 17. So basically until I was about to be an adult, which I am now. I'm 18 now, and I do have some very tentative plans for what I'm going to do with my life now.
Declassified that our government created Al-Qaeda and is running them in Libya and Syria.
Citation motherfucking needed.
And gave them heat-seeking missiles. And how dare Salon, Media Matters, BBC, Mediaite, and Glenn Beck, and he was the worst, even though I've done an olive branch, to say how dare unpatriotic Alex Jones say the government did it. I said criminal global mafias are funding terrorists and mentally ill people. I'm going to show the documents and articles on that. And that
who wants to bet that he never actually shows the documents and articles on that? I'm just going to check the description. See, link to a YouTube video. I think this is probably just going to be a quote mine.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
Something that Alex Jones would presumably agree with. See this? And, these. Article from InfoWars. And it wants me to use JavaScript, so I'm just going to link that. Didn't look like a secret government document. Health thing, not a document. Just the InfoWars homepage, Prison Planet, Infowars.net, PrisonPlanet.tv. Yeah, so no links, no secret government documents in your description. Maybe they'll be later in your video. I'm not seeing them.
Hands to gain. If they call for taking our liberties because of this, you know it's staged. I've been saying soft target attacks are coming because they're teaching police veterans will bomb every police department in America and public events with IEDs with no proof, and training and saying Christians and gun owners are not the threat. You know, Al Qaeda's not the threat. The Christians and gun owners are.
Okay, the Christians is a very nebulous terms, but I mean, I'd imagine that these days, mass shootings, which, you know, kind of require guns, probably kill more people than Muslim terrorist attacks in the United States. You know, sort of, if we start the count on September 12th, that's probably the result that's going to come up. That's just a guess. I don't know that for a fact, but I'd imagine.
A Freudian slip. We are not the threat. Al Qaeda, the globalist control system, is. And again, statistically, hundreds of thousands die from bad drug interactions and flesh-eating bacteria a year in the U.S. alone. Why is it so scary? Well, they emotionalize it. They show a guy with his leg blown off, and they...
Yeah, because they're the news and they want you to watch them because they're a corporation. And they need you to watch their program because when you watch their program, you'll probably watch the commercials that they intersplice it with. And that gives them money. That's why they try to emotionalize it. And you're right. The number of people who die from mass shootings isn't all that significant compared to the number of people who die from a bunch of other things. 50% of people who have ever lived have died, or whoever lived have died from malaria.
And they create this fear, hey, we better have army at every stoplight. We better have checkpoints and body scanners to go to any store because the terrorist hit. This is how an oligarchy takes control of a society. This has been declassified that our government and NATO staged more than 200 terror attacks from the 1960s to 1981 in Europe to blame their political enemies, and they just hope you don't go look it up. Now, let's go over first, before I get into the bombing itself. And again,
it's not my job to look up your claims, Alex Jones. It's your job to support them. You want to say that the documents exist, you have to show them, which it looks like you're about to, so...
There's maybe a 5% chance out of 100 that this could be real Muslim terrorists, or I guess there could be some domestic group freaked out that would go stage this. To be clear, I've never seen an Easter bunny, but some say it's real. To be clear, I've never seen Santa Claus. Some say it's real. Never seen a unicorn. Some say it's real. Now, I don't think it exists, but it may. Same thing with domestic terror groups. I mean, I've interviewed the cops and the people that saw the feds plant the bombs in Oklahoma City. You saw them stage Fast and Furious. Folks, they staged Aurora. They staged Sandy Hook. The evidence is just overwhelming. And that's why...
No, it's not.
I'm so desperate and freaked out. This is not fun. You know, getting up here telling you this, somebody's got to tell you the truth. Somebody's got to stand against these people.
And make a living off of doing so. And a comfortable living, as far as I know.
Somebody's got to do it. And
it's my job to stand there silently.
I just hope everybody that is watching out there that serves the system, who thinks they're going to get away with all this, I hope you understand that you're not going to get away with this.
We and our, you know, apparently ragtag group of, you know, little people are going to stand up to this globalist threat that can, you know, do whatever the fuck they want and controls all of the media and controls everything, and we're going to beat you despite all logic.
You get rid of our checks and balances, our protections, you're going to lose yours as well. And you want to throw your children out in the cold. You think you're cold-blooded. You think you're a winner doing stuff like this. You're not. Now, that said, they were running drills. I haven't even gotten to that yet. They were running drills at the exact time it happened with loudspeakers saying, "Don't worry, never mind, it's only a drill." It's one thing to have bomb dogs out, to add to the atmosphere of the police state and, hey, you need the government. But it's another thing to have them announcing, hey, this is just a drill, don't worry. And then right where the dogs are, 10 minutes later, bombs go off.
That could be a coincidence. That could also be something the terrorists deliberately did to make their attack more effective.
So we're going to get into all of that, but I think it's important to
Could also be something you made the fuck up.
We start with history, because those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And again, we're live at 7:35 Central here on InfoWars Nightly News for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. And if you are watching, InfoWars.com/listen has the free video streams right there for everybody. The articles are up on InfoWars.com, and they want to, hour one, have their official story out. We know who the prime suspects are. We know the history.
Hour one have their, which is why they decided on it being Muslims, despite you saying that they want it to be right-wingers. Like, if they wanted it to look like right-wingers were committing the terrorist attacks, they would use a right-winger as a patsy. They would say that that was what happened, and not just at first. Like, your entire conspiracy theory falls apart upon superficial examination. It's immediately incoherent.
Of this type of stuff, and we understand what's happening. And so we're here risking our lives, myself, number one, because there is no future if we let a criminal oligarchy continue to fund terror attacks or allow terror attacks to take place. So,
well, I don't know. That's what you say is happening right now, and things are still pretty nice in general, at least compared to all past states, and they still seem to be getting better. So at best, these guys are slowing progress.
They can pose as saviors and take our rights. But document cam, please. I want to, before I get into the latest news, I want to show you, I just played that clip of them saying right-wing extremist. And again, they may end up blaming it on Iran, too. They're getting ready to hit Iran, as you know. I'm not defending Iran. I don't live in Iran.
All right, so this was published over a year ago. They've not hit Iran.
But I mean, it's on record. False flags have been done against Iran. Our government overthrew the Iranian government by staging terror attacks in Operation Ajax in 1953 that they blamed on the government. They attacked Muslim mosque and said that the kind of quasi-secular leader Mohammed Mossadegh had done it. Kermit Roosevelt, CIA, MI6. See, this is all on record, but they just want to say conspiracy theory. Let's go to this. Alex Jones, Boston explosion of government conspiracy. The fringe see a false flag. They can be blamed on the Tea Party and expand TSA's reach when they got troops out at kite festivals here in Austin now for Al-Qaeda. Here's another one. Alex Jones declares Boston a false flag operation, FBI behind every domestic terror plot. I'm going to show you the New York Times saying that. The last 100 big plots they've had the last decade were all mentally ill people or purely made up events, okay? Here's the blaze. With absolutely no evidence, even though we've got history, like if somebody's robbed a bank 10 times and then the same MO matches, they're a prime suspect. With no evidence, Alex Jones calls Boston Marathon explosions false flag operation conducted.
Okay, I mean, the only thing that matches MO-wise is that it's an it's a terrorist attack.
By government, no. My tweet that Watson or whoever put it out with a typo in it said, "Don't that the FBI?" Said, "Don't doubt," I guess, has been behind virtually every domestic terror plot in U.S. history, the New York Times reported, and then a link to the New York Times. So there's all this implication. Army training manual lists evangelical Catholics as extremists. Big discord.
Wait, evangelical Catholics? That's incoherent. That's like saying Protestant Catholics. Those are mutually exclusive. Evangelicals are a type of Protestant. You cannot have an evangelical Catholic any more than you can have a Muslim Christian.
Gun confiscations. Now look at this. CNN national security analyst warns of right-wing extremists behind Boston bombings. That's Peter Bergen, big insider globalist. So there they are, saying exactly what I said they would say. And am I good for being right? No, I'm a piece of crap, according to all these White House groups. And
that's not what they settled on in the end. I mean,
Glenn Beck, who the media promotes, the establishment White House-run media, they promote him by demonizing him. Growing threat of right-wing extremism and violence. I mean, just constant. They're going to attack. There's nothing you can do. On and on and on. Now, let me show you this. This is the New York Times, April 2012, a year ago. Terrorist plots hatched by the FBI. And it goes on to say they manufactured all the recent terror.
The opinion pages notice that this is an opinion piece, firstly and immediately, so this isn't them saying it. This is just one of their writers saying it in a context where he's allowed to say whatever he wants. This isn't the New York Times saying it.
Attacks with mentally ill patsies. Okay, that's what we were linking to. That's what we were covering. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah. This is by I'm going to look this up. Hold on. David K. Shipler. But yeah, just notice this is an opinion piece. And okay, so this guy looks like a legitimate journalist. See, we're just going to read his article real quick. Okay. The United States has been narrowly saved from lethal terrorist plots in recent years, or so it has seemed. A would-be suicide bomber was intercepted on his way to the Capitol. A scheme to bomb synagogues and shoot Stinger missiles at military aircraft was developed by men in Newburgh, New York, and a fanciful idea to fly explosive-laden model planes into the Pentagon and the Capitol building was hatched in Massachusetts. But all these dramas were facilitated by the FBI, whose undercover agents and informers posed as terrorists, offering a dummy missile, fake C4 explosives, a disarmed suicide vest, and rudimentary training. Suspects naively played their parts until they were arrested. When an Oregon college student, Mohammed Osman Mohammed, thought of using a car bomb to attack a festive Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Portland, the FBI provided a van loaded with 6 55-gallon drums of inert material, harmless blasting caps, a detonator cord, and a gallon of diesel fuel to make the van smell flammable. An undercover FBI agent even did the driving, with Mr. Mohammed in the passenger seat. To trigger the bomb, the student punched a number into a cell phone and got no boom, only a bust. This is legal, but is it legitimate? Without the FBI, would culprits commit violence on their own? Is cultivating potential terrorists the best use of manpower designed to fight real ones? Judging by the official answers, the FBI and the Justice Department are sure of themselves, too sure perhaps. Carefully orchestrated sting operations usually hold up in court. Defendants invariably claim entrapment and almost always lose because the law requires that they show no predisposition to commit the crime, even when induced by government agents. To underscore their predisposition, many suspects are warned about the seriousness of their plot and given opportunities to back out, said Dean Boyd, a Justice Department spokesperson, but not always, recorded conversations show. Sometimes they are coaxed to continue. Undercover operations, long practiced by the FBI, have become a mainstay of counterterrorism, and they have changed in response to the post-9/11 focus on prevention. Prior to 9/11, it would be very unusual for the FBI to present a crime opportunity that wasn't in the scope of the activities that a person was already involved in, said Mike German of the American Civil Liberties Union, a lawyer and former FBI agent who infiltrated white supremacist groups. An alleged drug dealer would be set up to sell drugs to an undercover agent, an arms trafficker to sell weapons. That still happens routinely, but less so in counterterrorism, and for good reason. There isn't a business of terrorism in the United States, thank God, a former federal prosecutor, David Raskin, explained. You're not going to be able to go to a street corner and find somebody who's already blown something up, he said. Therefore, the usual goal is not to find somebody who's already engaged in terrorism, but find someone who would jump at the opportunity if a real terrorist showed up in town. And that's the gray area. Who is susceptible? Anyone who plays along with the agents, apparently. Once the snare is set, law enforcement sees no choice. Ignoring such threats is not an option, Mr. Boyd argued, given the possibility that the suspect could act alone at any time or find someone else willing to help him. Typically, the stings initially target suspects for pure speech, comments to an informer outside a mosque, angry postings on websites, emails with radicals overseas, then woo them into relationships with informers who are often convicted felons working in exchange for leniency, or with FBI agents posing as members of Al-Qaeda or other groups. Some targets have previous involvement in more than idle talk. For example, Wad Ramadan Alwan, an Iraqi in Kentucky whose fingerprints were found on an unexploded roadside bomb near Bai, Iraq, and Raji Khan of Chicago, who had sent funds to an Al-Qaeda leader in Pakistan. But others seem ambivalent, incompetent, and adrift, like hapless wannabes looking for a cause that the informer or undercover agent skillfully helps them find. Take the Stinger missile defendant James Cromartie, a low-level drug dealer with a criminal record that included no violence or hate crime, despite his rants against Jews. He was searching for answers within his Islamic faith, said his lawyer, Clinton W. Calhoun III, who appealed his conviction. And this informant, I think, twisted that search in a really pretty awful way, sort of misdirected Cromartie in his search and turned him towards violence. The informer, Shahid Hussein, has been charged with fraud, but avoided prison and deportation by working undercover in another investigation. He was being paid by the FBI to pose as a wealthy Pakistani with ties to Jaish-e-Mohammed, a terrorist group that Mr. Cromartie had apparently never heard of before they met by chance in the parking lot of a mosque. Brother, did you ever try to do anything for the cause of Islam? Mr. Hussein asked at one point. Okay, brother, Mr. Cromartie replied warily. Where are you going with this, brother? 2 days later, the informer told him, Allah has more work for you to do, and added, revelation is going to come in your dreams. And I've read most of it already. I'm not going to read the rest. The point is, this article is definitively not saying what you think it is. It's not saying that the FBI is staging terrorist attacks. It's saying that they're staging sting operations to catch potential terrorists. The article is criticizing this practice, which is why it's an opinion piece, but it's not saying that there's false flag operations going on, Alex. That's not what it's saying.
Okay? Now, Glenn Beck acts like, with no evidence, I'm saying this. You want evidence? Again, they don't want you to ever think that Hitler could have staged terror attacks on his own military bases and launched World War II and Operation Gleiwitz under Operation Himmler.
Well, he didn't have to. World War II was started by him attacking other people.
Classified Nuremberg trials. They attacked their own bases and blamed it on the Poles. They don't want you to know Vietnam was launched with a staged Gulf of Tonkin, now declassified as staged by our government attacks on our own ships. They don't want you to know about Ajax, Northwoods, Gladio, No, they just want to say, there's Alex Jones, there's the bad man, because I don't like a bunch of foreign banks running our intelligence agencies, staging terror attacks so they can create a monopoly society and overthrow our free republic and our free market. I don't like it when they say the new threat is gun-owning, returning veterans and conservatives and libertarians. Total Creepville. And the state police come out last week in Oklahoma and in Colorado and say, first Colorado, and say, we've been told to prepare to mass arrest Christians and take their guns. I mean, this is body snatcher level stuff. This is obviously the bad guys in control in a soft coup, trying to roll out a purge of the American people. This isn't a game. Now let's go to this article. Yeah, coach, bombs. Yeah, put that back up. Bomb sniffing dogs were at start, finish, lines at drill. And people spin that and go, well, there's always dogs. No. The local news article says they were on loudspeakers saying it's only a drill. We're going to get to that after we cover this. We're going to get to that in a moment. Let's go back to this article right here. This is just history of it. This is just last week. Italian Supreme Court president blames Bilderberg for terror attack. Document says secretive group was involved in strategy of tension. They have their former president, their former CIA director, their former prime minister come out and say, and they've released a lot of this in the news, the Bilderberg, this private mafia, this banker mafia, stages terror attacks in Italy and Europe every time we try to get our sovereignty back. They do.
Okay, firstly, I mean, well, what do you mean? What do you mean when you speak of sovereignty? I mean, UKIP. This is granted. This is since this video was made, but the UK independence. If you mean from the only thing I could think of that you would mean is from the European Union, or else from the UN. So, like, I don't think there's a serious force trying to get out of the UN and the EU, at least in the UK. That force is actually doing pretty well. The UK Independence Party.
And blame their political enemies. Okay? Here's another one. President Ahmed Karzai thinks the U.S. could be behind the latest Taliban bombings as a pretext to stay in the country. He goes on to say the U.S. created Al-Qaeda.
We're just gonna...
As a pretext.
President... Okay, just read the entire thing. Nowhere in the article does it state that the U.S. created Al-Qaeda. Alex Jones, you made that the fuck up. And it's just saying that the President Hamid Karzai thinks that this is true. It doesn't say that there's any actual reason to think this is true.
To stay in the country. He goes on to say the U.S. created Al Qaeda. Well, that's just a known fact. There's
He also doesn't mention. He also doesn't speculate on. Does he? Okay, yes, he does say that.
Gladio and the NATO option, hundreds of stage bombings all over Europe. Okay, look it up to blame their political enemies. U.S. accused of colluding with Taliban in Afghanistan as President Karzai hijacks Hagel visit.
Probably talking about the same incident, and it's from the Daily Mail, which is British Fox News.
Afghanistan Karzai blasts U.S. barring Hagel visit, Reuters. And it goes on to say the U.S. staged the events with their Al Qaeda forces.
Gonna. Okay. Okay, this is talking about the same speech as the last one.
bombs set off yesterday in the name of the Taliban were in the service of Americans to keep foreigners longer in Afghanistan, of course. Trillions every few years.
Yes, Karzai said that. That doesn't make it true.
That's not the U.S. It's global crime syndicates in control of our country. Now, let's go on to this next stack of news. Here's what Marcos was just showing you on screen. UN coach, bomb-sniffing dogs were at start and finish lines. People say, well, that's what happens now.
That article is from your website.
The security theater. No. They kept making announcements on the
This article mentions an interesting possibility that they had, some sort of suspicion or threat called in. Which I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's confirmed. I'd imagine if that were true, they would say so.
loudspeaker that it was just a drill, just like 9/11, just like...
No, that didn't fucking... did it? Here. I've never heard that before. Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Just like Aurora. And there was nothing to worry about, he said. And then now, in fact, I gave this to David when they were on. I forgot to bring it back over here. I need to get it from him. Local news is reporting that there were people there the day before saying, don't be here, you're going to get bombed. Because this stuff gets leaked, just like 9/11. Local news is reporting that people were going, don't sign up for this, they're going to bomb you. That's in local news.
Citation needed.
If they were running a drill and they weren't staging it, they would normally say, oh, we were there, trying to stop it, what heroes. They had troops there digging people out of the wreckage. All of this is a giant photo op. And it gets worse. One of the biggest pieces of news is Rob New has had public arguments in front of me on the phone and via text messages with his wife's brother, who is in domestic defense intelligence operations. We'll just leave it at that. And it's such a huge thing. It's like having somebody that works at Walmart in your family. It's just millions of people involved in this spy network. And, he sends him like, here's the photo of bin Laden. See, it's real. And it's the fake bin Laden put out with the Daily Mail. And we send him back the message going, no, that's the fake one. No, I'm not going to look at it. I saw
the Daily Mail, who you just used as a source and trusted.
Something else, because they give them the fake ones as well. People in intelligence are even more brainwashed than those without it. He was running in the Army team, the official Army team, brought in by an Army truck. He's a marathon champion. Dude's been with him on vacation when he runs gets up at 3 a.m. and runs 20 miles before breakfast. They come to the line a few minutes before the bombing, and they say, "Get out of line. You're sick. You're going to the hospital." He goes, "What?" They go, "That's an order," and they take him out of the line. I guess friends took care of him, huh? I mean, this is just off the chart, and Ndu has already talked about it. Ndu, you were in a band with Joe Stack. The fellow's playing into the into the IRS building. I mean, this is crazy. You want to come over here and talk? Hey, have you finally gotten more intel on what happened with your brother-in-law?
I have not. I haven't heard from him yet. Apparently, he's at the hospital, and his wife is on his way to meet up with him, and that's the last that I've heard. But with the Joe Stack thing, it was my neighbor's band, and I would go sit in. But yeah, I knew Joe Stack, which is pretty weird.
Oh, we released the video, with you playing with him.
Yeah.
But I mean, have I not every day been saying it privately this morning? I was freaking out that they're going to do something.
Oh yeah.
The crew's like, how the hell? I could see it all. I could feel it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just these dead people.
I can tell you're stressed too, because your voice is definitely like cracking more. I mean, this is definitely weighing on you right now. I can tell.
Well, because they're going to do it all over. If this beta test works, they're going to go full bore, declare us all terrorists. I mean,
Hasn't happened yet.
It's unbelievable. It's the authoritarian takeover of America, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because they can't have us free when they bring in the world government.
Right.
I mean, what do you think? Well, what are your points? I'm going to get into this other news.
I think the biggest thing is, well, this is interesting too. The Boston runners were warned. That coach just getting on there and saying this other article, bomb sniffing dog.
Yeah, notice, okay. So according to this guy, according to one of the runners, a woman holding several bags was telling runners who were picking up their pre-race packages in downtown Boston on Saturday, April 10th, that they were going to die if they participated in the event. I was downtown on Saturday, and you see these people on the street and think it's just some nut bar, he told the chief. Well, creepy, because you can identify who others are. I heard her say that if you run tomorrow, you are going to die. At the time, Halliger said he thought about telling the woman the race was Monday, but decided not to correct her. In the process of calling the police. Okay, so what we're gathering is that a woman was telling the people there that they were all going to die, and then there was a terrorist attack. Yeah, I'm going with coincidence, and the reason I'm going with coincidence is because why the motherfuck would the New World Order do that? Like, who do you think this woman was, Alex Jones? How did she find this information? How did she find it and not everyone find it? Why? There's no reason for the New World Order to behave this way. That's why it's a coincidence, even if it seems kind of unlikely as a coincidence, which it might not be that unlikely that someone somewhere would say this.
guns were theirs.
Yeah, but that's not even the issue. They kept making announcements on the loudspeaker that it was just a drill. The Madrid bombing, 7/7 in London, every event, Rob.
Yeah.
Every event.
There's always a drill. It's always...
Because people say, why does that matter? Because they cover the funding of the drill and it's compartmentalized.
Right.
If people catch them, they say it's a drill. Like
well, and then they get some guy, drug him up, or they plant him like the FBI's been caught doing, and we showed that article too.
Well, look at this coming out. Boston runners were warned, and this is being reported in the local news, that people were walking around the day before saying you're going to die if you're
Not people walking around. There was a woman.
part of this. Because this stuff leaks. People always say, well, if something like this happened, it would come out, people would speak. They always do.
Yeah, they just get...
And, it leaks, and someone finds it, and then no one else does.
buried. It always gets buried in the back of the news.
And again, we now have TSA checkpoints where we live. They now have Army at the public events.
Well, this is a big excuse to do this. I mean, that's the... there was bombings at the Boston Marathon. We're going to have
They want to control travel because they're going to do such horrible stuff, taking the pension funds and stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to want to keep people on watch lists out of the central city because they know people are going to be so mad when your neighbor disappears, your kid disappears, that you're going to go on a vendetta against government.
Right.
And they're already telling the bureaucrats, you're going to be all right, we're going to take care of you. I've talked to police all over the country. When they have the tanks in East St. Louis protecting the city council, they've told them, don't worry, during this time, we'll protect you.
Right.
So, this is a takeover. This is Vichy France being taken over by the Nazis.
And it's conditioning, because the people that they interviewed in St. Louis were saying, I feel safer that they're around. I feel safer. I think crime's going to drop.
Crime is dropping. It always has been dropping.
And I want to air, begging for it. I want to air your report tonight, where I told you this morning.
Yeah.
On the nightly news, we're going to talk about martial law, but I want to air your report about troops trained to kill gun owners.
All right.
I want to play that before we go back to the guys to take phone calls.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy. Good job. And I know I appreciate you working so hard, dude. Anyways, getting back to what I was saying. I don't even need to sit here and convince people about this. You've seen every drama, every sitcom, every show, Pillsbury ads where the TSA gropes you. The bad guys are conservative,
Citation needed.
libertarians, gun owners. They're going to attack. They work with Al-Qaeda. Just asinine stuff. And now this happens. And it's photo finish Boston Marathon. They either wound up some real extremist and let them do it, like the New York Times reports, where the feds cooked the bomb, trained the drivers in the World Trade Center bombing back in the early 90s, or they staged the whole deal and will burn a patsy. No Tea Party person would work with Al-Qaeda like they're trying to claim.
Who's trying to claim that?
And Saudi Arabia, this is the most important point, Saudi Arabia and the West are like this. I mean, they are peas in a pod. They are absolutely together.
It doesn't mean that every Saudi national is going to not commit terrorist attacks. There's still Muslim extremists in Saudi Arabia.
On this thing. And our government is running Al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria. I declared Obama the head of Al-Qaeda worldwide last month. I mean, he is. I mean, our government, but it's so off the script. It's like, yeah, it's in the LA Times. Our government runs Al-Qaeda and they're ethnically cleansing Christians in Syria. I mean, chopping their heads off, you name it. It's like, oh, well, they're nobody. Yeah, chopping their heads off. And, oh, the Boston Marathon, let's personalize it. And then it's okay to get sad. Everybody's like, on our Patriots Day, they're on the news going, America got hit on Patriots Day, but we're getting behind the government now to do what it takes to keep America successful. I mean, this is nothing but the occupational government. Bottom line, you've seen all the scripting. You've seen the buildup. You've seen us tell you it's coming. And it's just thoroughly disgusting. Let's go back over some of these articles. UM coach, bomb-sniffing dogs were at start-finish lines for drill. And people are like, well, they already got dogs. Again, making announcements on the loudspeaker that it was just a drill. There was nothing. Oh, we have the announcements on video? Oh, my God. Let's play those video clips right now. Unbelievable.
Let's see when this is.
We have the announcements. We're doing all this live, so we'll get those clips. I was told we had that, but these stupid computers. But that's all up at infowars.com and prisonplanet.com. And again, folks, I don't want to risk my life for them to win. I wouldn't be risking my life if I didn't think we could get out of this. I mean, I am willing to be set up or destroyed just so our future isn't run by whoever will stage terror attacks and whoever runs the media and the military-industrial complex, run by foreign banks stages an attack, and then all of the prostitute media goes along with it, and it just goes on and on. Do we have that clip? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's the coach talking about it. Let's go ahead and play it then.
At the start line this morning, they had bombs spotted on the roofs of the building, and they had bomb-sniffing dogs coming up and down at the start line, and Melanie said there was bomb-sniffing dogs at the finish line, but they kept making announcements saying to the participants, do not worry, this is just a training exercise. Well, evidently I don't believe they were just having a training exercise. I think they must have known, they must have had some kind of threat or suspicion called in.
I bet they had a threat. Well, they'll get to grandstand as our saviors. Again, the narrative that veterans will attack every police station in America that's been put out for 4 years is a fraud to frame the American people against this takeover. And they may be going back to the script because no one would buy that right-wingers are terrorists. They may be going back to the Al-Qaeda script. They're saying it could be Al-Qaeda. But again, our government runs Al-Qaeda on record and puts them in Libya and Syria and gives them 10,000 heat-seeking, shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles. So none of this holds water. Here's the other articles up at Infowars.com. Eyewitnesses, authorities announced drill before Boston explosions. coach thought it was odd. Bomb-sniffing dogs were at the start and finish lines. Great headline, Watson. Work until midnight tonight, your time. But the big issue is the announcements. That's unprecedented. And they said it was a drill, not security. So that's just some of the news. Here it is, authorities ID, not servants, authorities. They're an authority or not. ID suspect is Saudi national in...
That's the common way to refer to police officers.
Marathon bombings under guard at Boston Hospital.
I'm interested to learn that Alex Jones, think fucking hell. Doesn't understand the concept of servant leadership, apparently. That's really not surprising.
Well, if it turns out to be Saudi Arabian Muslims that did it, Wahhabists, let's invade Iran, the Shiite country.
Not happened.
We invaded Iraq, the quasi-secular Ba'athist party. In fact, why don't we invade Australia? You know what? I mean, can you bring me the globe in from another office? We got a bunch, guys. Maybe we just spin the globe, because last time they blamed Iraq and planted WMDs on them. Maybe we just spin the globe.
No, they didn't plant WMDs on Iraq, because there were no WMDs that anyone found.
Cover our eyes and touch it. And if it's in the middle of the Indian Ocean, we go nuke the Indian Ocean. And show film going, flying fish did it. Or those whales did it. Because this is the type of crap that I'm talking about here. This is the type of unmitigated garbage that we're dealing with as a society. Oh, yeah, spotters on the roofs, everything. Well, everything's a national security event. And just like Madrid, where it came out in Spain, the government did it and had to step down on 333. By the way, that was the first time I ever went on Coast to Coast AM. Was the day of the Madrid bombing. It had been set up for weeks. I'm on Coast to Coast AM for 3 hours tomorrow night. And obviously we'll be talking about all this, a whole lot more, coasttocoastam.com. It's just unbelievable that stuff like this is going on. And again, you've got the former head of Italian intelligence. You've got all their Supreme Court coming out saying the West is staging these terror attacks. It is, piece of paper. It is off the charts. And we're going to play a report here by Rob Dew from last year that's had 2.5 million views, dealing with the Army manual saying they're trained to kill gun owners. I mean, folks, if you study military history, when the government's training the police and military that gun owners are terrorists, and the preachers need to tell them to go to the FEMA camp when it's time, and the military's training for gun confiscation, that is off the chart creepville. So even if they try to blame this on Saudi Arabia, they're trying to gauge things right now. The media has already tried to lump right-wing extremism, gun owners, conservatives in with Al-Qaeda by saying it'll be Al-Qaeda or it'll be right-wingers. What, it's not the Mexican mafia that's killed 60,000 people in Mexico?
Okay, I don't know much about that, but I mean, like, drug mafias typically don't perform this kind of terrorist attack.
Houses in the U.S. It's not even white supremacists that have killed people.
Those would count as right-wing extremists.
It's not some other group. No, it's automatically right-wingers, which means anti-globalists, not fake right-wingers, but, more libertarian types they call right-wingers. Or it's Al-Qaeda. Because there's only one thing worse than Al-Qaeda, that's a returning veteran or gun owner or grandma that we haven't been able to kill yet. So Saudi Arabia, 15 of the 19 hijackers. NORAD stands down. Saudi Arabia, right over here, Saudi Arabia doesn't get attacked on 9/11. Iraq, 2 years later, gets invaded and blamed for it. Now they're trying to say Iran's behind Al-Qaeda when they hate them more than they hate us, the mullahs. They're Shiite. See, this is Wahhabis. This is Sunni. Not all Sunnis are bad, by the way. Just the ones the globalists fund. And they've sent out of Saudi Arabia into Syria, into Libya, all over the world, into Afghanistan, Pakistan. They send the British intelligence brigades, the British set up over 100 years ago, Lawrence of Arabia, into all these places to destabilize. And then our government, the globalists, bomb and attack all these countries to go after their own people. They put them in, and then they were so dumb they attack Shiites and Baathists, saying it's to stop Al-Qaeda. It's the opposite group that comes out of Saudi Arabia. So 9/11 happened, and they didn't go after...
Notice that he just confused Iraq with Iran a second ago. Because Iran are in fact Shiites. Iraq, who we attacked, and Saudi Arabia are Sunnis.
Didn't go after Saudi Arabia, who supplied the cutouts. The globalists actually ran it. The big banks ran it. They went after Iraq. And now they're putting Al-Qaeda from Saudi Arabia in charge of Libya and Syria and using Al-Qaeda to threaten the West. They can take our rights over here. Bombings all over Europe, bombings in the U.S., blaming it on Al-Qaeda. So they can take our rights when they actually run Al-Qaeda. Now, if it ends up being Saudi Arabia, do you think they're going to attack Saudi Arabia? No, they're not. They're going to attack Iran.
They attacked no one. Been over a year, they've not attacked anyone, and there's no sign that they're going to.
And ignore the fact that our government's funding Al-Qaeda and sponsoring them out of Saudi Arabia into Syria, into other areas. So, now let's do this on air. I'm going to close my eyes. Instead of attacking Iran, or they said they could start World War III, I'll just spin the wheel like they did blaming Iraq, and then we'll just attack whoever we randomly pick. Maybe this is how the Pentagon chooses people. 3 spins. Okay, Ethiopia. We will now nuke Ethiopia. That's where it came from. Doesn't matter, it came from here. Isn't that funny? I spun it 3 times, it was still close to there. Now let's spin it again. You know what? Let's try it again. Let's see what happens now. Uh-oh. St. Vincent and the Grenada did it. Attack them. Almost Venezuela. They did it. Attack. It's weird. I keep spinning this and picking globalist enemies. Let's try it again.
Because that's most of the world.
Okay. New Guinea. New Guinea is the enemy. They ran Al-Qaeda. No one but Saudi Arabia.
But wait, no, Ethiopia isn't like an America, isn't like enemies with America. Nor is Saudi Arabia, nor, well, you didn't say a word, nor is New Guinea as far as I know.
And the West will attack no one. Here, let's spin it again. Oops. Here, let's try it again. We'll attack 2 places this time. Okay. New Hanover is an island. We'll attack it. And the Chagos Archipelagos oil we'll nuke them. They did it. Here, let's spin it again. Anybody that the West has a history of staging terror?
I would say that joke stopped being funny a couple minutes ago, but that would require it to have been funny at one point.
Saudi Arabia works with them. Let's not attack them. Let's. Uh-oh, Canada. Folks, time to nuke Canada, right? Blame Canada, right there, nuke them.
Time
That's
for a
preemptive
preemptive strike.
population right there. We'll just blow that up right there. Because that's who did it. I mean, hell, CNN said so. There you go. You guys like my targeting, how I pick targets? But, okay, I got to say, Badandi, Badandi's awesome, but, his wife and child were up there in Rhode Island. I felt bad. A lot of these reporters that I ended up hiring came down here, and, it was family stuff, families in Rhode Island, families in New Jersey. There's family stuff. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to get in the way of families. But he still does reports every week for us as a auxiliary reporter. And he does a great job. Badandi's got a lot of heart. I haven't even gotten to Dan Badandi. Getting on Fox, asking the police commissioner about the drills. And then I talked to Badandi before I went on air here, and I said, okay, there's another press conference. Get in and ask him about false flag. Do we have that video coming in? Yeah. All right, well, just whatever you get, just make sure they air it coming up in the next segment. And obviously, I'm very exhausted. I'm not complaining. I went to bed at midnight last night. I woke up at 4 a.m., couldn't sleep. I never used to be like that. I just am totally freaked out. And I'm not complaining, but I am pretty tired right now, pretty punch drunk. I should have had more coffee. Last coffee I had was about 1. And I'm going to go to sleep here in a couple of hours and get up and deal with all this, because when they lock my ass up, knock on wood, I hope they don't, or kill me. I mean, I don't have any time to talk to you anymore. They say there's no rest for the wicked. I don't feel very wicked. I just want justice. I mean, I'm so sick of the obvious PR rollout for this stuff. I mean, it's so obvious. And I just want my country back. I mean, it's just the gullibility of this nation and the West is what has allowed all this to unfold. Did Badani get his question in?
And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the problem with libertarianism. It isn't your country, Alex Jones. It's everyone's. Well, every American's.
You want to come in here? Come on in here. This is very powerful. Badandi is kind of like a wild man like I am, but he's a real guy. That's what we like about him. Yeah. Tell me about Badandi.
Okay, I'm just getting this from John Bound. He just called me. He said Badandi got his question in on the press conference to the governor. It's actually the governor of Massachusetts. Asked him if it was a false flag. He said, no, next question, real quick, cut him off. And then apparently he's still asking questions. He's not shutting up. He's being Badandi. Basically that's it. And so we're grabbing that foot.
So they're ignoring the guy who's raving in the audience at the press conference.
It's on Fox is where we're grabbing it right now, and we'll have it up. When we go back to the other guys over on the other side, we're going to connect with them. I think we're on that.
Be honest with me. I want the listeners to realize what they're viewing. This is history.
Oh, yeah, this is it. I mean, this is all the pieces apparently have come together. Badandi going up northeast, is all.
No, but I mean, not even that. Just the fact that I use the cheesy analogy of the trench run with X-Wings. I mean, this is it.
This is it.
I hope people sitting at home realize, I mean.
And we need your tips, too. People out there scouring the internet. Like when Sandy Hook happened, like all the great research that people were doing out there, putting it out on their own, not waiting for us to put it out.
Hey, it's shaking the system up.
Yeah, I mean.
Because they're targeting totally dumbed down people that buy anything. And more people just don't buy anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just, I mean, I think it's amazing. Just the amount of research people have done on Colorado and Sandy Hook is just,
I'm just glad that when I die, I didn't die a coward. You two do. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just that, we don't even pat ourselves on the back, though. The build-up where every show,
we got that clip.
The Liberty people are terrorists.
We got the Jakari piece where he shows just every single instance where.
Well, that's just locally, lately. Yeah, you want to play that?
Yeah, well, this is the one that has that TV show, The Following, where the guy goes, I'm a constitutional extremist.
And the top psycho's like, whoa, that's the most evil thing. I like that.
And John,
he did one with a bunch of clips. Is this the little one or the big one?
This is the little one of that with a bunch of others. Because you and David Knight talked about it, and that one's up on YouTube. But then this is one that
Green Lantern fights the militia.
Right. It's got
it's like before World War II when they figured out they were going to fight the Germans. Suddenly, for the year before, we're going to fight the Germans began. I mean, now it's we're going to fight the veterans and gun owners.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
all the cartoon guys were fighting guys with pointed helmets in the 1940s. That was part of that build up to that.
So it's all on right. Well, like right before 9/11, they had the Pearl Harbor movie.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go ahead and go to that clip. Here it is.
The cell tower linked to your wife is near a roadside motel on Highway 31.
Typically, there's 5 to 6 agents per safe house in a designated area away from the other guests.
I'm thinking an M17 or my micro Uzi with a silencer.
You ex-military? I don't know. We're better than that.
They were both raised by militia. Constitutional extremists, to be accurate.
The following, a Fox TV series starring Kevin Bacon, is the latest television program to demonize the militia. I'm Jakari Jackson with an InfoWars News Bulletin. Even though the Constitution guarantees the rights of a well-regulated militia, that has not stopped the mass media from portraying the militia in a negative light. Let's take a look at these clips where the hero fights militia antagonists.
Because they're viewed as superfluous. Because they are. Because we have a military.
Thursday, to save a young boy's life, Michael Weston takes on a militia.
They are locked down tight.
An unknown number of heavily armed militiamen have taken over the mine. They plan to use the salt mine as their base during the Second American Revolution, which is, they claim, imminent.
More shows still, such as the In Development We Hate Paul Revere and Founding Fathers.
The real programming is happening with these shows like Founding Fathers, where the guy that's pro-gun in Texas and leading the militia, he's really Al-Qaeda, which fits into the whole narrative that, it's white Al-Qaeda or gun owners are really Al-Qaeda.
InfoWars has also documented subliminal propaganda in television shows such as AMC's Breaking Bad.
One example is AMC's Breaking Bad television series, as it depicts a meth villain as a Ron Paul supporter.
Okay, I happen to have seen Breaking Bad. The reason that one of the villains was a Ron Paul supporter was because he was a libertarian, because that was the reason that he was a drug dealer, because he believed that consenting adults had the right to decide what was in their bodies, and if they wanted to use meth, they had the right to do so. And since he happened to be a chemist, he went into the drug business. You've clearly not seen Breaking Bad.
And we'll end with a clip of Alex Jones warning of such propaganda in his film Road to Tyranny. I'm Jakari Jackson with an InfoWars News Bulletin.
And there were plenty of other and let me just say, Dale Whitaker, the libertarian in Breaking Bad, he was a very minor character. He was in like maybe 4 episodes in season 3. And that's it. I mean, granted, the stuff that he was involved in the season 3 finale had a pretty big effect on the plot of season 4, particularly Jesse's character arc. But it was not a big deal. His libertarianism was just sort of an offhand character trait he had. And the other villains in Breaking Bad didn't have explicit political views. Gus Feng, or Frang, I think it was Frang, didn't have any real explicit political views, nor did Mike. Walter White's political views aren't known. Jesse Pinkman is essentially the same way. I mean, I'm trying to think. Yeah. Tuco was not intelligent enough to have political views of any kind. None of them did. Also, one of the good guys from Breaking Bad was Hank Schrader, who was a rather obsessed cop, who's definitely the kind of person we would associate with right-wing stereotypes.
Look at this guy. You know, he's talking about the founding fathers and people that are committed. He's talking about constitutional terrorists. Before that, the cops are so conditioned. They say, who are the terrorists? Who are the first terrorists? The founding fathers. They all know. They all say founding fathers.
Well, that's not really correct. Well, actually, you could argue for the Boston Tea Party being a terrorist attack. It's probably not, because most definitions of terrorism require the targeting of civilians. But the thing is that there is no one definition of terrorism. So yeah, you could argue that that kind of organized destruction of property counts as a terrorist attack.
Again, we're not trying to take credit for predicting all this. It's not hard. It's like I predict the sun comes up at 6:45 tomorrow morning. I mean, it's designed for the most dumbed-down population. I can go home tonight, turn on any drama, and it'll be, they won't take vaccines, they're child molesters, or they don't trust the government, they've murdered children, or they don't trust the government, they're racist.
Never heard that. See, the issue is that a lot of real-life white supremacists really are also anarchists or libertarians. Because those things, they've gotten linked together. And I mean, I think that the reason that a lot of racists tend to be libertarians is simply because they kind of don't want rules that prevent them from discriminating, and libertarianism is the most plausible sounding way that they can, get away with discriminating against black people.
Or they're homeschooled. Oh, and it's like, or let's laugh at Charlton Heston. He's a murderer. Like Jim Carrey said. It's just
Jim Carrey's an anti-vaxxer, just saying.
Ham-fisted propaganda. But see, I didn't get into comic books. I got into history books. And girls. But, I mean, kind of a mixed deal. But I know, because I started reading history books, and every page was like battles and wars and subterfuge, and this guy did this to that guy, and this secret society. I mean, Roman history, Nazis, the communists. I mean, I couldn't put it down. I mean, I was like 15 and read Gulag Archipelago because it was action-packed. I mean, this is a guy in a forced labor camp. And I just, by the grace of God, learned all this stuff. And now I sit here watching the exact playbook. I mean, I was reading where AP has hired North Korean propagandists to help them advise them on how to run the AP. And I saw that the other day in mainstream news. I mean, I can't even believe that. Our government hired the former head of the Stasi, the worst police state in human history up at the time, the East German Stasi, Marcus Wolf, to set up home.
So yeah, this isn't a matter of the Associated Press hiring North Korean propagandists to help them do the same things that North Korean propagandist does. The issue is that they want to do stuff in North Korea, and so they essentially have to play ball with the North Korean government, because North Korea is North Korea.
Homeland Security. I mean, obviously the government's super bad when they teach state police nationwide, the Christians are terrorists. We're going to have to arrest them en masse. And here's the Army manual for forced labor camps. I mean, obviously, whoa, they're going to stage something. They've done it before. We've got to do something. And it's just creepy to know now that it's not just White House run groups like Media Matters and BBC Connected that are demonizing me right now, but Glenn Beck again. And it just is really despicable. I've covered a lot of this news. I want to throw it back for 30 minutes to Jakari Jackson and to David Knight and the rest of the great crew that's working so hard. We got to shut this down in the next hour so everybody can get back, get some sleep. We have a limited crew. We're not CNN or Fox News or MSNBC funded by big corporate donors and tax money and stuff like MSNBC especially. We're funded by viewers like you. Please don't forget, we're sending free streams out of all this. The video is very expensive. Be sure and support InfoWarsStore.com. Get a PrisonPlanet.tv membership. Buy the books, the videos. Support us so we can be strong and do more of this. That's always essential. Buy your war bonds. But in a few minutes, we'll go to this. Then when I come back, we'll have the new clips of Dan Bidandi talking to the governor of Massachusetts about false flags and what happened in the aftermath of that. Great job, Dan. And I will get to the other newscast and things. But are they ready to make the switch to the other studio? Yeah, why don't you just play my video intro where they try to blame right-wingers? Remember that one? Or just pick something. The key to being live is, let's just pick something and go with it here. Just whatever. We'll go ahead and go to the other. Yeah, this is the earlier Dan Bidandi footage where he got into the press conference and brought up the drills with myself and Leanne McAdoo and Rob Dew. And then we'll go to the other crew for 30 minutes and I'll come back with final points and final clips. Let's go to that.
Hey guys, Leanne McAdoo here at the Austin, Texas InfoWars News Center. Our East Coast reporter Dan Bidandi is on the scene and he was able to get in this question at the news conference.
We are looking at all of that right now. That's one of the investigative steps that we're taking.
They said they were doing drills this morning and the same exact thing happened on WhatsApp.com. Now, were you guys given any word ahead of time about this taking place?
As I said earlier, there was no specific intelligence. We certainly increased our posture around a big event like this. All of those things happened in preparation for this event, but there was no specific intelligence that anything was going to happen.
Now, we've got that story on our Infowars.com website, and you can check it out and follow up with more.
Absolutely, folks. It's all breaking there, and a live feed is at Infowars.com/listen. A live video feed is there for everyone with Jakari Jackson, David Knight, myself, and the rest of the crew, Rob Dew, John Bound, the entire crew here, Adon Salazar, Kurt Nimmo. They're all there right now covering all of this, and Leanne McAdoo is also on top of it as well. So this is a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, because so many of these past events have been false flags. We've got to study this and see if it is, because they want to have this total rollout of the police state, an excuse to carry that out. Leanne, what else are you working on?
Well, I've got some stories coming up about the drone strikes. Obama had just flat out lied about how many people have been struck with the drones. Maybe that's why we got this, to distract people. So.
All right, great job, dude. What else are you working on?
Well, I'm going to try to follow up and see what happened with my brother-in-law, who was actually running in the marathon.
For the Army.
For the Army.
He's in intelligence. Tell folks what happened with him.
Right, and apparently he got pulled out early of the race. They said he was dehydrated. So I'm trying to get a hold of him right now. I've been throwing texts back.
You got to go to the hospital. They came to him.
Right. They pulled him out of the race, sent him to the hospital, said he was dehydrated. And
wasn't that nice? In fact, Leanne, search engine real quick. Mayor Willie Brown got warning not to fly on 9/11.
Right.
It's the second link, San Francisco Chronicle.
Yeah, Condoleezza Rice actually warned and gave him a phone call, personal phone call, which he said he didn't make much, didn't think much of it then. You know, when the Secretary of the National Security calls you and tells you not to fly, I guess it's not a big deal, you know. So there you go. And now we also have reports. The U of M coach, the cross country coach, said that
they had loudspeakers. Yeah, that's up on Infowars.com.
Right.
They have loudspeakers on there openly announcing, hey, it's just a drill, don't worry about the dogs. And then you can also go to, again, yeah, that's a saved version of Willie Brown got Loki warning not to travel. But if you actually go back, and good job finding that live, you're on the fly, we're basically taping this live. There it is, San Francisco Chronicle, boom, Willie Brown got low-key early warning about air travel. And again, the Joint Chiefs of Staff are supposed to fly to New York. We're told not to. I mean, this is incredible. And again, if your brother or your brother-in-law, your wife's brother, again, you say he's a great marathon guy.
Yeah, he's in shape.
Miles for breakfast, you name it. Boom, this happens. Very suspicious. We need to ask him, were you really, quote, sick? Why did they pull you out?
Right.
So you're getting the second hand through your wife who talked to him. All right, well, that's it for this report. Great job to the entire crew, and great job doing the work you're doing, and great job to all the listeners getting us the tips. Follow us at Twitter at RealAlexJones, ladies and gentlemen. The investigation continues, because you better believe they're not going to let this crisis go to waste. All right, folks, here we are. It is 8:53 Central Standard Time with InfoWars Nightly News Extended live coverage here this evening. I'm going to wrap this up very, very soon so our limited crew can get some rest before tomorrow. But this has all the telltale signs of being a staged event. This has all the telltale signs of being a false flag, or
in that it was a terrorist attack that happened, and Alex Jones can make money.
At least a provocateur event, a crisis they won't let go to waste. But have you seen how many times the military-industrial complex and its foreign owners have provocateured or staged events to take our liberties? It would make your head spin. And that's why I'm glad that we have been here as real media challenging the official narrative.
As opposed to that fake media.
Tonight. That's why I'm glad that we have been here to point out, hey, we have a group that has staged hundreds of false flag terror attacks and thousands of medical experiments, many of them lethal, against foster kids, minorities, veterans, the general public.
Not since MK Ultra that I'm aware of.
And so they have a motive and a history of acting like this. That's why they're in control, because they're ruthless. And they love the image of running, screaming, scared crowds and Papa government, Mama government, there to protect everybody. Now, our East Coast reporter, Dan Badandi, who's a real bear when it comes to taking action, he charged in there, and at one press conference earlier today asked about the drills they had, and then another with the governor brought up false flag. You can see the InfoWars flag with his microphone up there, and he got the first question in, and they ended the press conference a few minutes into it, only like 2 minutes, when O'Reilly and Fox and CNN and MSNBC were all carrying it. We have TVs all over this office. It was all on there. And they ended it because the governor was like freaking out. They shut this press conference down. And of course, you notice the governor knows what a false flag is to take our liberties. He didn't say, what's that? He went, no, we're not doing this for that.
Yes, because he knows what a false flag is, because he's presumably been, like, trained in politics. And he's probably heard claims like this before.
This whole thing stinks to high heaven, and the cops everywhere have been caught attacking their own officers as a pretext to arrest protesters. This is one step up from that. Blow a few legs off. Everybody gets pay raises. Everybody's heroes. And it's the oldest trick in the book, and no one wants us to discuss that. Oh, it's so preposterous. Who would ever imagine that somebody would stage something to get power? Why, that never happens. Reichstag, Nero, burning Rome, fiddling. I mean, there's so many examples of this, so they want us to not talk about something that's a known phenomenon and who has the motive out there. So let's go to Dan Badandi. Here it is.
If you take any questions?
Oh, sir, my phone speaks to all the people in New York and stuff. They come before the bottom of it all. Is this another false flag stage attack to take out civil liberties, security? I was thinking of hand down on the streets.
Yeah.
Next question.
The medical people are compiling that as we speak. Main point of focus right now.
Okay, because speakers telling people to be calm, to be calm, I think it's like
Currently, your search for additional devices are you searching the entire course of the investigation is in the area that the governor mentioned.
People aren't going off there. Any accounting for people, so how
We're actually working very closely with the families right now. We're going through those right now.
why was people being told fire? 9:30 tomorrow morning. We did it. Thank you. The fire will off the same time. That's the whole fire, gentlemen.
This is Piers Morgan Live. I want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to CNN's team coverage.
And then you've got the military creeping around. 400 members of the military there. And of course, didn't keep you safe from it, did it? And then they're saying, could it be Saudi Arabia, the group our government run?
No one is saying it was Saudi Arabia. It was a guy. Well, two guys actually from Saudi Arabia.
And the group our government lets attack Libya and Syria. Well, I just want to say again, because they work really hard, and I want everybody to know how hard we're working to get you the truth. Our entire group of staff, reporters, IT people, everybody, and you, the listeners that spread the word about PrisonPlanet.com, PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com, we couldn't do any of this. We couldn't do any of this if it wasn't for the support of the viewers like you.
Cha-ching.
This is a real operation. This is teleprompter free. We use history as our guide, justice as our North Star, and liberty as our destination. And I have 3 children. I have a great wife. I have a great family. I'm quite frankly, endangering them to do this because I realize there's no future. There's no shore to land on. There's no destination if we don't reverse this entire criminal tide in this course. We can't turn society and the whole world over to the very worst people in our culture and in our world. And if we act like cowards and grovel for tyranny every time there's an event, there will be people that will supply us with events so they can pose as the drama queens. We are not the United States of drama queening. We are the United States of America, and we are the big imperial empire, so everybody wants to seize us. And the empire is murdering and bombing and slaughtering people in mass everywhere. It's going to stage a few stimuluses against itself as the pretext to go out against the world. And a lot of people say, well, so what? We're an empire. We get the money from it. No, we don't. We pay for the empire. We don't even get the spoils. So even if you are a wannabe globalist and a corrupt person, a thief, you're not part of the winning team if you join the New World Order. You're a schmuck. You're a sucker. You're a dupe. You're someone lying to themselves that they're part of the power structure. All right, that's it for this extended. We did 5 hours of radio today, and the other guys did 3 or 4 hours, and then we've done a couple hours here. So I don't know how many hours from 11 a.m. to now. How many hours is that?
Well, it feels like it's been several hundred.
10 hours of transmission here for a news crew that would normally run a small town station. And again, great job to everybody. We're reaching millions of people, and history's happening. We don't have to sit by while the globalists, provocateur, stage events and do this. And so tomorrow we'll continue with the free video feed. There's always free audio feeds for everybody at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com and Infowars.com/listen. You can also find the free links at The Real Alex Jones on Twitter, so be sure and follow us there. I'm going to go sleep for a few hours, get up, doing the daytime show tomorrow, then extra coverage, and then I'm doing 3 hours overnight, coast to coast AM on this subject and others. So be sure and join us for that. And without further ado, it's 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock Pacific. We'll know a lot more tomorrow, so join me at 11 a.m. Central for the kickoff of the official InfoWars Alex Jones radio show. And until then, I'm Alex Jones signing off. Remember, if you're watching this transmission, you are the resistance.
The other thing I think I'd say is that if this does turn out to be terrorism, don't immediately jump to conclusions about who's responsible. There's some, it's more than rumour, it's chatter from within the intelligence services that suggests that it might not be what one's mind perhaps leaps to of Islamic radicals, but that it could be homegrown extremists who, of course, have attacked in the past within America.
Indeed, one recalls the Oklahoma bomb, of course, which was attributed initially to Islamic terrorists and turned out to be homegrown.
Yes, exactly. And there's reports that happened on the night, and I'm saying reports because I just haven't had time to check it out, that happened also on Patriot Day, which is today, the first Monday in April. So that might have a special significance. And we know that the Homeland Security have, ever since President Obama was elected, been on potential alert for an incident that came from the right, as well as, of course, their continual alert about potential Islamic terror.
I said that was it for the show, but I hadn't seen that clip. I saw the article about it. And again, they're all saying this, and then I'm going, they're going to blame us. And then Glenn Beck says I'm bad to say that, along with Media Matters in the White House. I mean, I don't know who they're going to end up blaming for it, but I know who the prime suspect is and who stands to gain, who has a history of this, and who runs Al-Qaeda worldwide, who's putting Al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria. All right, that is officially the end of the transmission. See you back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central. Please pray for us and for America, and for those that were attacked, I'll pray for you. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.
Oh, thank God it's over. Oh my gosh, I still have 0 viewers. Probably going to stay that way for a while on these. I'm on a new channel. Well, Beetle forced me to sit through that. Waste 2 hours on this, which is about half the time I expected it to take. But nonetheless, I do have a little something set up for you revenge-wise. So I've done a belated response about the Boston Marathon, and so now you get to. Happy Calper and Pizzo, motherfucker. Done with this.